When you think of Alzheimer's disease and everything that we know about it, the death rates, the cognitive decline, all of it has pointed to a pretty grim diagnosis. But now, that all may be changing.
You see, researchers have spent so much time and effort learning everything they can about the disease that they're making quite a bit of headway in the fight against Alzheimer's. So much so that they're even using words like hope and excitement. Just to give you an idea of the advancements, medical experts say a new drug, Solanezumab, can actually slow cognitive and functional declines in people who have even mild cognitive impairment. They're so hopeful with the trial results that they're calling this drug a game changer. CBS News medical contributor Dr. David Angus says there's excitement and there's hope, two words you never hear with Alzheimer's. There's also promising new research on the impact of sleep. Medical experts say poor sleep may actually increase a person's risk of developing Alzheimer's. It's pretty scientific, but the research was enough for one doctor to call sleep disruption an underappreciated factor. Now, experts are wondering if improving sleep can make a difference in protecting people's brains. Researchers have also been looking at the impact of exercise, and they're encouraged by what they've learned. Medical experts say in those who've been diagnosed with early stages of Alzheimer's, moderate to high intensity physical activity may slow the biological symptoms of the disease and lead to improvements in cognitive function. And yet even more new research shows how Alzheimer's affects people of different races. A new study shows the disease causes different changes in the brain in African Americans than in white Americans of European descent. Scientists in Chicago say the finding is significant because it may lead to different types of Alzheimer's treatments for African Americans. Now, all of this research just touches on what medical experts are now learning about Alzheimer's disease. And the findings are so important because Alzheimer's affects so many people. Jimmy, you have more on that.
The numbers are eye-opening. When you think about Alzheimer's disease, you probably know it affects a lot of people. But how many just may shock you. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports more than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, but listen to this, that number is expected to triple in the next 35 years. The Alzheimer's Association projects 28 million baby boomers will develop the disease by 2050. That's not hard to believe considering someone in the U.S. develops Alzheimer's disease every 67 seconds. So how in the world can we put a dent in these numbers? Well, really, it all comes down to understanding the disease, which was the focus this week in Washington at the world's largest forum to discuss groundbreaking research on Alzheimer's. Dr. Heather Snyder, Director of Medical and Scientific Operations at the Alzheimer's Association, joins us now from the association's international conference. Dr. Snyder, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. I'm going to admit here, I sometimes have these little mental slips. I forget things and sometimes wonder, you know, could this be leading to Alzheimer's? And I'm guessing that probably a lot of people tend to think that way. Did anything come out at this conference regarding that?
What we're seeing at the Alzheimer's Association's International Conference is that there may be factors from early life that may be linked to later life risks. So things like type 1 diabetes, which is typically diagnosed in childhood, or school-age performance, may be linked to later life risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. But the Alzheimer's Association has the top 10 warning signs for someone that may be concerned today about their risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, the Alzheimer's Association would encourage you to speak to your healthcare provider.
Okay, so of those 10, can you mention a few of them for me?
So it's really a change in something that you've done your whole life or something that you've done for a long period of time. So for instance, I balance my checkbook every week. I still pull out my paper register and balance my checkbook. If I have a difficulty in that particular task, that may be a sign to me that there's a change in my behavior and that I may want to speak to a healthcare professional. My husband, however, that's not something he's ever done, but he's an avid cook and will often put recipes together that he no longer needs the recipe card. Right. And so if he had a change in cooking, that may be a sign to him.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that because my understanding is that research is showing that women tend to decline earlier than men. Why?
We don't completely understand. We know that about 2/3 of the more than 5 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease are women. We don't really understand why. Is it that they're living longer? Or are there underlying biology or genetic reasons for this difference? Some research that was presented at the Alzheimer's Association's International Conference suggests that women who have some early memory changes actually decline 2 times faster than men. And in that same group of women, we actually see that they have an increased buildup of the beta amyloid protein, one of the hallmark changes in Alzheimer's disease.
Wow. Okay, Dr. Snyder, I understand there's no cure for Alzheimer's disease, but let me ask you about this. A neuroscience professor recently said we can find ways to prevent and beat the disease. What's your take on that?
The field is talking about possible prevention, the idea that we could detect earliest changes that someone may be experiencing before they have memory changes. And when we can detect those changes and when we have a therapy, whether it's a lifestyle intervention or a medication or something together, putting multiple things together, we can intervene at the earliest time point to stop or slow the progression of the disease. Very much like how we talk about heart disease today.
Right.
You may have a blood test for cholesterol and intervene at an earlier time point.
So I've heard something about a saliva test.
So we've seen new research looking at the potential of a saliva test, the idea that a tool that's non-invasive, low cost, may be able to detect some of those earliest changes in Alzheimer's disease. Still in the early stages of development, but we do know that ultimately we will need such a tool.
Okay, so Dr. Snyder, thank you so much for all of this information that you've already given us. Now let me ask you this. Is there something that perhaps we can be looking for that will lead us to perhaps the onset of Alzheimer's, that we can know something may be coming?
The Alzheimer's Association has 10 ways to live your brain. So these are 10 ideas of things for overall cognitive aging, for healthy cognitive aging. These are things that you can do today. And if you are concerned about yourself or changes in yourself, speak to your healthcare provider.
Medical and Scientific Operations Director, Dr. Heather Snyder, thank you so much for your time with us this afternoon. Now, if you'd like to read more about the developments from the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, all you have to do is go to WBOC.com and click on our picture at the top of the page. Dr. Snyder mentioned there are 10 warning signs, so let's go over all of those. The Alzheimer's Association says memory loss that disrupts daily life could be a warning sign of Alzheimer's. Challenges in planning or solving problems, difficulty completing familiar tasks, confusion with time or place. If you have trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships, new problems with words in speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your steps, decreased or poor judgment, that could be a warning sign of Alzheimer's. Withdrawal from work or social activities and changes in your mood and personality. Now again, if you're concerned that you may have some of these symptoms, it's best to see your doctor. A person's health can seriously decline if they don't have enough to eat. And unfortunately, hunger is something many kids right here on Delmarva face every day. Yeah, it's happening right here. We're going to take a look at how serious the situation is next. But it's not just food. Many kids don't have the supplies they need to go to school. We're going to tell you how you can help stuff the bus to make it a great school year for kids on Delmarva. DelmarvaLife. We'll be right back.